Hello, everybody. My name is Ray. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. Today, we have to acknowledge the 1 year anniversary of 15 days to flatten the curve. On March 16th, 2020, President Trump largely caved in to the demonic forces surrounding him. Anthony Fauci just lied to Congress about his views on COVID 19, and the administrative state was listening to pandemic models created by the same modelers who believed we only had 9 years left to live because of global warming, because, all that 12 years left to live stuff happened about 3 years ago, or 4 years ago at this point. So overnight, the Branch Covidians became the largest religious group in the United States. They consisted of atheists, environmentalists, communists, Democrats, Republicans, and even church goers. They had their own Pope, Anthony Fauci. They had their own canon of acceptable models, scientific studies, and cherry picked data. They had their own salvation and soteriology with masks, social distancing, lockdowns, and the vaccine. Above all, it was an eschatology. They genuinely believed that this was an apocalyptic level event. The Branch Covidian religion would kill people, destroy businesses and livelihoods, and be the greatest threat to liberty globally. In return, it would give Big Pharma billions, an untold control over our lives. It would give its followers a newfound purpose. These cultists truly believe that they are saving lives by masking, social distancing, staying home, and taking an experimental vaccine. They believe themselves holier than thou because of their adherence to CDC guidelines. In the name of protecting the elderly, they treated them like prisoners, only worse because they released actual prisoners during all of this time. We've committed the worst elderly abuse possible in the name of protecting the elderly. The Bible is very clear on how the world will end, with room for debate on the exact order of operations. The Bible is exceedingly clear that Christ, not the Pope nor Caesar, is head of the church. However, we saw that churches disagreed with their actions. They disagreed with this foundational premise of Christianity. They not only closed their doors, they also barred their small groups from gathering. In direct opposition to Acts 5:29, churches cited Romans 13 in participating in unconstitutional edicts. They conceded and affirmed that the government had the authority to ban churches from gathering. Not only was Romans 13 misused and abused in an American context, it was also used to promote a heretical ecclesiology. Christ is head of the church. There is no equal. Instead of following the Bible, the American church groveled to the government, in many cases pleading with them to let them reopen. But Jesus declared in Matthew 28, verse 18 through 20, and Jesus came up to them and spoke, saying, "All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you, and lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." He begins by declaring all authority has been given to him, not some. And this authority is on earth, not just in heaven. The church disagreed. Jesus didn't really have that authority when there is a virus with a 99% chance of survival. We have a mission. Many churches treat Sunday morning as the mission field, and therefore they abandon their own mission field without hesitation. And without hesitation, that is key to acknowledge. Churches justified assuaging the Branch Covidians by stating this was only temporary. 1 year later, the church grovels to the state with ungirded loins. In Daniel 6, we see the proper response to temporary edicts that render unto Caesar what is to be rendered unto God. Verse 10 of Daniel 6 reads, "Now when Daniel knew that the document was signed, he entered his house. Now in his roof chamber, he had his windows open toward Jerusalem, and he continued kneeling on his knees 3 times a day, praying and giving thanks before God as he had been doing previously. Then these men came by agreement and found Daniel making petition and supplication before his God." The temporal nature of the wicked edicts had no bearing on Daniel's faithfulness. We are to fear God more than we are to fear men or lions. But the American church is lacking in its meekness and fear. And that's a reference to 1 Peter 3:15. But we are, however, abundant in our timidity and fervently lukewarm. As a religious minority in the age of the Branch Covidians, the Church of the United States needs to gird its loins and recommit its ecclesiology to Christ, not to Caesar. The church is a physical assembly of believers. We have a mission to disciple and spread the gospel. We should not be putting barriers up like masks, social distancing, capacity limits, vaccines, nor lockdowns in the way of proclaiming the gospel and fulfilling the Great Commission. This mission that has been given to us by God. God is the authority. Jesus is head of the church. We need to remember that. The American church needs to recommit its ecclesiology and acknowledge Jesus as head of the church, and we need to act accordingly. And I'm very frustrated by all this. In the last year, we saw that majority of the churches in the United States do not really believe that Jesus is head of the church. They believe that the state is head of the church, and that's an embarrassment. Then we complain about persecution when we're not willing to suffer for God. We're not willing to suffer the slightest bit. We're not even willing to risk a virus with a 99% chance of survival. We're not willing to risk going to jail for gathering when death isn't even on the table. This isn't China. This isn't Iran. This isn't North Korea. But the principle of what the government doing, however, is the same as those aforementioned nations. The principle is the same. However, we're not at risk of dying. And we still won't risk ourselves to suffer for Jesus. Now, if you're going to a church that isn't like this, consider yourself supremely blessed. If you're going to a good church that faithfully continued, consider yourself supremely blessed by God for putting you where He has you. It just shows that, I think one of the things we learned was that we don't have as many Christians in the United States as we thought we did. We learned that when a lot of people in the church decided to take up the Branch Covidian cult instead. We don't have that many Christians in America. And I understand that a lot of people are feeling alone. They're feeling isolated. Especially when the government wants to keep you isolated. And we're going to have to fight back in whatever capacity that we can. We're going to have to establish new institutions that have a committed ecclesiology to Christ and not to Caesar. We're going to have to take action. And God will prevail. And we have to remember that God will prevail. The gates of hell will not prevail against the church. However, the church is the universal body of believers. And we are learning that the universal body of believers is a lot smaller than we thought it was. We are learning that the mission field is a lot bigger than we thought it was. So, at very least, we should know that opportunities are all around us to reach the lost, to stand for Christ. Opportunities are all around us. I'm getting a little worked up because, this is 1 year. It's 1 year of this. The churches were so quick to close down and so quick to grab that PPP money. They were so quick to grab that government money and so quick to shut down. And there are very few exceptions to churches that took PPP loans and then started to push back on the Branch Covidian cult. For the most part, we see that churches took the PPP loans and went along with the Branch Covidians. That's the habit, or that is the pattern and correlation we observed. And it's embarrassing. It should make you angry as a Christian that the church gave in to a false eschatology, to a pagan soteriology, and lived like the pagans in fear and despair instead of living fearlessly as we are called to live. My name's Ray. This is the Evangelical Dark Web. If you like this kind of content, do subscribe to the channel. That'll help us grow because the YouTube algorithms will not promote a video like this. Also, check out evangelicaldarkweb.org, linked in the description below, and subscribe to that as well. Comment below what you think about what I think, and I will catch you on the next one. God bless.